Twilight of a certain summer day many years ago shaded softly down over the wild Ohio valley, bringing keen anxiety to a traveler on the lonely river trail. He had expected to reach Fort Henry with his party on this night, thus putting a welcome end to the long, rough, hazardous journey through the wilderness. But the swift oncoming dusk made it imperative to halt. The narrow, forest-skirted trail, difficult to follow in broad daylight, apparently led into gloomy aisles in the woods. His guide had abandoned him that morning, making excuse that his services were no longer needed. His teamster was new to the frontier, and altogether the situation caused him much uneasiness. "I wouldn't so much mind another night in camp if the guide had not left us," he said in a low tone to the teamster. That worthy shook his shaggy head and growled while he began unhitching the horses. "Uncle," said a young man who had clambered out from the wagon, "we must be within a few miles of Fort Henry." "How do you know we're near the fort?" interrupted the teamster. "Or safe, either, for that matter. I don't know this country." "The guide assured me we could easily make Fort Henry by sundown." "That guide, I tell you, Mr. Sheppard." "Not so loud. Do not alarm my daughter," cautioned the man who had been called Sheppard. "Did you notice anything queer about that guide?" asked the teamster, lowering his voice. "Did you see how uneasy he was last night? Did it strike you he left us in a hurry, kind of excited like, in spite of his offhand manner?" "Yes, he acted odd, or so it seemed to me," replied Sheppard. "How about you, Will?" "Now that I think of it, I believe he was queer. He behaved like a man who expected somebody or feared something might happen. I fancied, however, that it was simply the manner of a woodsman." "Well, in my opinion," said the teamster, in a gruff whisper, "he was in a hurry to be a-goin', and wouldn't take no advice. The fur trader at Fort Pitt didn't give this guy Jenks no good send-off. Said he wasn't well known around Pitt, 'cept he could handle a knife some." "What is your opinion?" asked Sheppard as the teamster paused. "Well, the valley below Pitt is full of renegades, outlaws, and hoss thieves. The redskins ain't so bad as they used to be, but these white fellows were worse than ever. This guy Jenks might be in with them. That's all. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope so. The way he left us looks bad." "We won't borrow trouble if we have come all this way without seeing either Indian or outlaw. In fact, without incident. I feel certain we can perform the remainder of the journey in safety." Then Mr. Sheppard raised his voice. "Here, Helen, you lazy girl, come out of that wagon. We want some supper. Will, you gather some firewood, and we'll soon give this gloomy little glen a more cheerful aspect." As Mr. Sheppard turned toward the canvas-covered wagon, a girl leaped out lightly down beside him. She was nearly as tall as he. "Is this Fort Henry?" she asked, cheerily beginning to dance around him. "Where's the inn? I'm so hungry. How glad I am to get out of that wagon. I'd like to run. Isn't this a lonesome, lovely spot?" A campfire soon crackled with hiss and sputter. Fragrant wood smoke filled the air. Steaming kettle and savory steaks of venison cheered the hungry travelers, making them forget for the time the desertion of their guide and the fact that they might be lost. The last glow faded entirely out of the western sky. Night enveloped the forest, and the little glade was a bright spot in the gloom. The flickering light showed Mr. Sheppard to be a well-preserved old man with gray hair and ruddy, kindly face. The nephew had a boyish, frank expression. The girl was a splendid specimen of womanhood. Her large, laughing eyes were as dark as the shadows beneath the trees. Suddenly a quick start on Helen's part interrupted the merry flow of conversation. She sat bolt upright, with half-averted face. "Cousin, what is the matter?" asked Will quickly. Helen remained motionless. "My dear," said Mr. Sheppard sharply. "I heard a footstep," she whispered, pointing with trembling finger toward the impenetrable blackness beyond the campfire. All could hear a soft patter on the leaves. Then distinct footfalls broke the silence. The tired teamster raised his shaggy head and glanced fearfully around the glade. Mr. Sheppard and Will gazed doubtfully towards the foliage, but Helen did not change her position. The travelers appeared stricken by the silence and solitude of the place. The faint hum of insects and the low moan of the night wind seemed accentuated by the almost painful stillness. "A panther, most likely," suggested Sheppard, in a voice which he intended should be reassuring. "I saw one today, slinking along the trail.